Hey guys, Wormy Horror here. The following 5 stories are true to the best of my knowledge and can be found on the subreddit Let's Not Meet. If you like the following stories, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, or subscribe, especially if you'd like to keep updated with the channel. Without further delay, here are 5 true creepy stories. Number 1. So, 7 years ago, I was pregnant with my daughter. My niece, 15 at the time, would come with me to the local mall so I could walk around in aimless circles, trying to induce labor. It was a rare, mild break in the weather, so we sat outside for a bit, enjoying the brief warmth before yet another snowstorm would pummel us. While sitting there, a guy walked over to us. He seemed a bit sketchy, probably a bit older than my 24 years. "Hey there," he smiled, showing yellow, dirty teeth. I forced a polite smile, not really wanting to talk. He focused his attention on my niece. "I'm Justin. Who are you?" Reluctantly, she answered, "I'm Ashlyn." Cool. I'm 19. How old are you?" Ash glanced over at me. I was trying not to pull a face, but come on, that guy was definitely older than 19. "I'm 15, she answered. This went on for a while. Just short, polite answers. Finally, he started to get a bit weird, turning his attention to me. I took care to make sure that my wedding ring was highly visible, but he didn't take the hint. I finally tried to politely excuse us. Instead of leaving us alone, he proceeded to follow us inside. In order to get away from him, I tried to fake that I had to go to the bathroom and pull my niece in with me. "What is this guy?" she hissed. "Thanks for having to pee." I responded that I didn't have to, and that he just gave me the creeps, especially the whole "you're a beautiful pregnant woman" thing. I cringed just thinking about it. I suggested that we hang out in the bathroom for a little while more to make sure that he would be gone. We waited for about 10 minutes before venturing back out. Looking around, I was relieved that he was no longer in sight. We conferred real fast and decided that we would go on a walk as planned, just a few circuits around the mall. We were closing in on the bookstore with its tall floor-to-ceiling glass. That's when I caught him following us. He was being sure to stay just far enough behind that we wouldn't realize that he was there, but I caught his reflection. I nudged Ash and pointed towards the bookstore, hoping she could see the same reflection I did. "Come on, let's go ahead and take a look. I know you hate books, but I want to see if they have anything new," I said. We ducked in. Thankfully for being short, it allowed us to disappear behind the low shelves. Again, we waited it out. We didn't see him around before continuing our trek. But yet again, I caught a glimpse of him not far behind us. I groaned under my breath. "He's still there," I whispered to Ash. This time, she grabbed my arm and dragged me into Victoria's Secret. Oh yes, the perfect store for a woman who is 9 months pregnant, I thought. This time, we decided to head back for the doors and get out of here. Neither of us were comfortable with this creep behind us. Before taking the exit, we looked around carefully, making sure he was actually gone. We didn't see him anywhere. We hurried to my car, and thank goodness for reserved pregnancy parking. The next night, I turned on the news. It was the usual. Politics, some new bombing in the Middle East, and then local news. A man had been arrested for the brutal rape and beating of a local pregnant woman. He was caught in the act. The mugshot flashed up, and my jaw dropped. It was the creep from the mall. He had attacked the woman the day before, the same day we had been to the mall. He attacked her in the parking lot. Number 2. This story happened a few months ago, shortly after my 20th birthday. I am a male, about 6 foot 2 inches tall, and quite muscular, so I didn't ever think I would be involved in a creepy story like this. I live in a small town in western Germany, and I study near the town of Dusseldorf. In order to get there, I have to go by train. Usually, it is a very boring train ride, and I spend my time reading several different stuff. However, there was this one time which made me really upset and angry with some random creepy guy. It was in early spring. I took the train back home, and it was remarkably empty this particular day. The only person who was at my train compartment was a young girl sitting for herself in a row of seats just opposite of me. She was cute, but I could clearly see that she wasn't older than 16, and likely even younger. Suddenly, I heard footsteps and saw a guy approaching the girl's seat. As soon as he started to speak, I knew that it was the creepy guy that I had seen earlier. He was taller than me, but a bit obese, with short, greasy hair and really dirty clothes, as if he hadn't changed them in days. He also was a bit older than me, probably in his late 20s, which made the following scene even more creepy. So, he approached the girl, asking if she could remove her bag next to her so that he could sit down. I looked at him, quite confused, since there was a whole train compartment full of empty seats. The girl was probably intimidated by his size and silently moved her bag. He sat down and started a conversation with her. It started with, "Hello, do you also travel to Ham? We could travel together if you want." She denied with a quick and weak no. He was silent for a few moments before making his next move. "Do you come here often?" he asked. She shook her head, and I was already wondering if I should intervene. The next question the creep asked was, "What's your name?" "My name is Lars." So at least I knew his name now. The girl did not answer, clearly frightened by this guy. When he didn't get his answer, the man started to touch her knee. "Hey, I'm asking you a question," he said, with a really creepy tone, as if he would speak to a baby or a pet. I couldn't see his face now, since he was facing the girl, but I am convinced that he had some super creepy grin on his face while saying this. When she did not give him an answer, he started to touch her thigh. "Hey, please answer me," he said. That was when I decided to intervene. I stood up, walked over to the creep, and tried to look as intimidating as possible. "Hey asshole," I said, "don't you see that she wants to be left alone? What the heck is wrong with you?" Lars looked at me, confused and slightly shocked, as if he didn't even notice my presence at the train compartment before. "What's it to you?" he stuttered, before giving me a really creepy look and asking, "Are you her boyfriend?" I replied, "You are scaring her, you creep. You better leave this train compartment now before I have to get really angry." And for some extra cheese, I added, "Believe me, you don't want to see me when I'm angry." He quickly got up without saying another word and quickly left the train compartment, most likely looking for easier prey elsewhere. I was glad that convinced him, because even though I am muscular, I am not used to physical violence, and I'm not sure if I would have been able to beat him up. The girl was almost crying, and really thankful that I stopped this creep. She left the train at my destination, thanking me again before going her way. I never saw her again, but I saw Lars the creep a few days later, trying to hit on some kids at my train. I gave him an angry look, after which he left the kids alone. Thankfully, I never saw him again after that. Number 3. This happened when my boyfriend, James, was around 12, and his sister, Maggie, was 13. They are now aged 23 and 24. They were holidaying with their mom and stepdad in a typical British caravan park somewhere in Kent. If you don't know a typical seaside caravan park in the UK, then it's basically a cheap getaway where you stay in a mobile home, and there's usually an on-site facility with things like karaoke, live entertainment, amusement arcades, and a pub, etc. It's very cheap and cheerful, a bit tacky, and just generally your typical working class holiday. The family were all at the on-site disco this one night. The adults sat at a table and the kids were dancing on the dance floor. Maggie was dancing away when she noticed a man that sat at a table just staring at her. He was on his own, fairly old, and looked generally creepy. Maggie has always been tall for her age, but still, she looked like a young teenager and no older. After being sufficiently creeped out by the man, she went and sat with her mom and stepdad. The man continued looking at her, but she tried to ignore him and eventually went back to dancing. After a while, she went to the bathroom. Shortly after entering, the man followed her in. All alone in the bathroom, he pinned her up against the wall and said something along the lines of, "I know you want it." She managed to get away and ran back to the table with her parents. The song Red Red Wine by UB40 was playing at the time, which she still can't listen to this day. She didn't tell her parents then and there, but just stayed quiet and seated until the night was over. They all walked back to their caravan. At this point, her mom and stepdad had obviously noticed something was wrong, and when they were inside, she told them what had happened. Rob, the stepdad, suggested that him and Maggie go out for a walk. She really didn't want to leave as she was still terrified, but he convinced her that fresh air would do her good. So off they went. Not too far after having started their walk, Maggie goes all shy and starts hiding slightly behind Rob. It's the creepy man from earlier, walking towards them. Maggie tells Rob it's the man who attacked her in the bathroom. He immediately runs towards the guy and starts beating the living shit out of him. In all the commotion, my 12-year-old boyfriend runs out and tries punching the guy as well. All this time, the guy keeps shouting, "I thought she was 16, I thought she was 16. Either due to coincidence or someone in a nearby caravan hearing and seeing the commotion and thus calling security, a police or security van, I'm not sure which, drives past and stops next to them. They initially try and detain Rob as the other guy is completely battered. But after he explains what happened, they grab the other guy off the ground and drag him into the van. This is where it gets weird. The guy suddenly panics and starts shouting, "I didn't kill those girls, I swear. I promise I never killed them." Maggie, Rob, and my boyfriend are all a bit confused and weirded out at this point, but after talking to the police, they are allowed to go back to their caravan. Around 2 days later, they find out in the local paper that 2 teenage girls' bodies had been discovered not far away from where they had been staying. They were around the same age as Maggie. Looking back, I think Maggie had quite a lucky escape. Number 4. For a little background, I'm a shorter, blonde female, and at the time of this story, I was 15. I was a freshman in high school, and I had a friend named Gino I was super close with. He was more of a brother to me than a friend. Gino was a junior at the time and a varsity football player, so as you can guess, he was in pretty good shape and could be intimidating if needed. Anyways, it was a Thursday, and Gino had asked if I wanted to get dinner that evening after school and then proceed to see a movie. I said yes and told him that I'd meet him at the theater around 6:30 or so. He obviously drove at the time, but he had to do some stuff after school, so I asked my mom to drop me at the theater to meet him. Fast forward to 6:30, and my mom drops me off at the theater and leaves. Gino isn't there yet, and I get a text from him saying he was going to be a little late and would get there around 6:50. I didn't know where we were going to eat yet, so I just sat down on a bench to wait for him. At the time, a brand new hamburger place had just been opened right by the theater. About 2 minutes into waiting and texting on my phone, I was interrupted by a man who is probably around 6'2", white, brown hair, in his mid-30s, typical business-looking type. He said, "Are you lost?" I looked up at him, startled, and then obviously I told him no, since I was waiting for a friend to see a movie. He then proceeded to small talk. I was already getting a little creeped out, but I talked back to him anyway since it was summer. And it being only 6:40, it was still light outside. He then proceeded to tell me that he was the manager of the new hamburger place, and he asked me if I wanted a job. First off, the fact that he is asking a random girl if she wants a job is already strange, but I just turned him down, saying, "Thank you, but I already have a job." He then proceeded to start badgering me, saying, "Come on, I can interview you right now and probably pay you more." Just to see what he would say, I asked him, "Okay, where would you interview me? At the table? Inside the restaurant?" To which he answered, "No, it's too busy in there. We could just go around back." Okay, I may have been a naive looking 15-year-old girl at the time, but I'm not stupid. I told him again, thanks for the opportunity, but no, hoping that he would leave. But nope, he still didn't get the clue. He now proceeded to tell me that he was actually in town with some friends, and that he was staying in a nicer city in the state I lived, and asked if I wanted to go party with them tonight, and I could stay for the weekend. I wondered what had happened to being a manager at this burger place. Clearly, by now, I know that this guy is a creep, so I told him I was 15 and couldn't go out partying. Maybe he just thought I was older, I thought. But still, no. He continued to press me on, saying to just tell my mom that I was staying with a friend. And he kept asking me to walk over to the parking lot where his friends were so he could introduce me. By this point, I'm standing up, trying to think of ways to get out of this situation. At this point, I noticed that the man was getting a little irritated. He was almost demanding I just go with him to meet his friends. I wanted to get away from him, so I just said, "Sorry, I think my friend is here," and started to walk away when he grabbed my wrist. I'm not kidding. This creep literally grabbed me in public like no big deal. He started pulling me, all while saying that I was going to meet his friends, when all of a sudden, my friend Gino miraculously comes up walking. Gino asked what was going on, and the man drops my wrist, and in a rude voice goes, "Who's this?" So from being scared, I said, "My boyfriend," hoping that if he hadn't already noticed, Gino would get the clue that something wasn't right. The man gave me an evil glare and said, "I thought you said you were waiting for a friend, not a boyfriend." At this point, Gino pulled a tough guy act and started asking the guy what the hell he wanted and to get the fuck out of here. The man, without arguing, just power walked away towards the back of the burger place, acting all pissed off. Gino wanted to chase after him, but at that point, I was so shaken up and really just wanted to see our movie. Needless to say, I never saw the guy again, but to this day, I wonder that if I had been in fact naive enough to simply follow him, what would have happened to me? Would he have kidnapped me? Raped me? I have no clue, but seriously, I'm so glad I wasn't stupid enough to find out. Number 5. This story happened when I was with my little brother in Walmart, and we were in the clothes aisle looking for shirts for my dad's birthday. I'm currently 17, and so it was just my little brother, who is 4, and myself shopping. He was hiding in those circle racks that just have enough space in between for a kid to fit. He would hide there for a little bit, and then I would crawl under and grab his feet and spook him, and he would laugh endlessly until he hid again. This time, I couldn't find him for a while, so I started to get worried. I called out, "Marco," because this is how we found each other in stores. He would always respond Polo, and I would immediately find him. Except this time, a gruff man's voice responded, "Polo," and I could hear my little brother whimpering. I bolted in the direction of the man's voice, and came across another one of the circle racks, but it was extending a little bit, as if a bunch of junk had been stuffed in there. I pulled the shirts off the rack, and saw this man sitting cross-legged on the bars across the bottom with my little brother in his lap, the man's hand over my brother's mouth. The man looked to be in maybe his late 40s, and was very unkempt. His clothing was worn. The worst part was that he had his pants down, but thankfully not his underwear. My little brother was crying, and at first I'd had no idea what to do. I then realized, by some random strike of luck, that there was an umbrella right nearby, so I leaned over and grabbed one and smacked the man with it, screaming at him to let my brother go. Some Walmart employees came over and held the man down while I grabbed my brother, and they later called the cops. It turned out that the man had lured my brother by asking him if he'd like to join the man in a game of hide and seek. The man was later arrested. I really hope I never see this man near my brother ever again. If you enjoyed the previous stories and would like to hear more similar creepy stories, then 2 of my previous videos are linked to in the description and can also be seen by clicking the annotations on the screen. If you liked the video, please show your support by subscribing, liking, sharing, and commenting on the video. Additionally, if you'd like to hear more of my stories, please feel free to subscribe so that you will be notified of any new videos I post. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.